So many aspects of our lives rely on the burning of oil and gas and other fossil fuels. But as we light our homes, heat our water and radiators, and travel about the place, we're also destroying the world we hold precious. And it's not just the environmental costs that concern us. As competition for a dwindling supply of oil becomes more intense, the price is going to rise. Ireland's got huge potential with energy. Small population, wonderful natural resources all around us. And we can grow lots of this energy. Within 20 miles of here, there are wonderful things going on to do with energy crops. And we can be fully sustainable with energy for our future. 15 years ago, the idea that we could grow our fuel seemed like the stuff of science fiction. But new technologies mean we can generate fuel from wood and crops, from wood waste, cow slurry, and even most amazingly, from grass. Now any area, like Wexford for example, can generate its own fuel locally. Both wood chip and wood pellets make great alternative fuels for home heating.
Morning to the house.
Lovely house.
Thank you very much. Yeah, we're on the go here since about 1990.
Right, okay, it looks lovely.
Yeah, this is my wife Paula.
Hi, Duncan.
The Murphy family have installed a wood chip burner and find that it's made a huge difference to their energy bill.
How are you? Fine, thank you.
Very good.
We had the oil system here, and you know, with the price of oil and that, you're inclined to scrimp a little bit on the oil and save it as much as you can. When you changed over to the wood chip, it was just a different level of comfort in the house completely. That is the biggest difference that we found here.
Declan Murphy keeps both his boiler and his wood chip supply in his garage.
So I put my boiler here, Duncan, into my garage, which is about 20 metres away from the house.
And is this the wood chip store here?
The wood chip is in behind this little house here. And the auger system here then automatically augers the fuel into the boiler itself.
And this is the boiler here. Automatic in every way?
It takes in the fuel as it needs it. It ignites the fuel automatically, and it cleans all the ash out in this little bin, as you can see here at the front. So it's easy for you to remove afterwards.
Wood chip is also ideal for larger buildings like hospitals, schools, factories and hotels. Billy Kelly of Kelly's Hotel in Rosslare has implemented lots of environmental changes, but nothing prepared him for the savings he made by installing a wood chip burner. So this is giving all your heat now for the hotel. So what sort of savings is it making?
The cost of oil at the moment is about 6 cents per kilowatt delivered heat. And the cost of wood chip is 2 cents.
So one third of the cost?
1/3 of the cost.
Wow. Billy Kelly sources his wood chip locally and has just planted 35 acres of woodland.
Here we go, Duncan.
Pretty soon the hotel will be almost entirely self-sufficient in terms of heating and CO2 neutral. Hotels and the food industry in general generate another source of renewable energy, biomass. Kelly's Hotel turns its food waste into compost with their space-age composter. But another way to deal with it would be to send it to a local anaerobic digester, which can turn it into methane gas, the gas we already use to heat our homes and for cooking. The Berridge family have been making Carrickburn cheese for over 20 years. With over 200 cows, the family have installed an anaerobic digester to cope with the slurry waste. And the machine has an enormous appetite. Paddy, you've got slurry here. How many cows?
Well, I'm making 230 cows in the partnership. And in the winter, we collect the slurry scraped out of the channels into a slatted channel and falls into a concrete tank in the ground. And we pump that slurry into an anaerobic digester in which it stays for about 20 days.
The anaerobic digester works like a huge cow's stomach. Once the biowaste has been loaded, it slowly digests it to produce methane. Patrick stores the methane in a large tank. And are you mixing anything in with it?
Yes, we take in food waste and mix it with the slurry in the winter. In the summer we run the food waste on its own and pump it into the digester.
And these are waste that would have ended up in landfill.
That's right, yep.
And of course that would have been a cost to them too, because the cost of landfill is quite high.
Exactly. Yeah.
So they can come here with it and they pay you a fee?
That's right. Open that clip there.
The methane produced is used to fuel a combined heat and power generator. The heat generated heats the home and farm, while the extra electricity is sold out into the national grid.
Engine. You're running on 90% gas, 10% diesel.
Cars and trucks generate 33% of Ireland's total CO2 emissions. And this is climbing all the time. As oil becomes more scarce and as global warming becomes more real, the need to find an alternative becomes more pressing. Thankfully, we have one biofuel alternative up and running. It's rapeseed.
Amazing how much energy can be generated from the oil. It's as good as diesel. The ratio is 3:1. 3 tonne of seed produce 1 tonne of oil, 2 tonne of our byproduct, which is rape cake.
Cake, and that's used for what?
That's used for animal feed. I think in the next 2 to 3 years we're going to see oil prices going through the roof.
So this could be the fuel of the future?
This could be the fuel of the future. And it's a chance for us as farmers to grow it.
All day long, truck drivers arrive at Biogreen's farmyard depot near Wexford to fill their tanks with biodiesel. Cars and trucks can be easily modified. All they need is a little unit that heats the fuel. Units cost between €1,000 and €4,000, depending on the engine size. Bill Murphy, a long-haul driver, drops in regularly to fill his tank. Bill drives over 50,000 kilometres a year and has made huge savings by switching to biofuel. Is it much cheaper?
It's around 30 cents a litre.
Cheaper?
Cheaper, yeah.
But you know the big thing, of course, is it's CO2 neutral.
Yeah.
So you're actually driving something that's causing no CO2.
Yes.
And you're a trucker.
I am, yeah.
And you know, you guys are usually the worst.
Yeah, for fumes.
That's fantastic. We have so many renewable energy solutions around us, but the Environmental Protection Agency believes that the best of them has been lying right beneath our feet all the time.
There's a crop there that's across the country already that we're using in farming, which is grass. There is huge potential there. We can sow grass, harvest the grass as silage, put it in an anaerobic digester. It ferments the grass, releases the gas, which can then be used for a variety of purposes. We could burn it immediately in an engine to produce electricity. People could use it at home for their heating and cooking, or people can use it in their cars. And if we want to compare, 1 acre of rapeseed oil can drive a car for a year. The equivalent in terms of 1 acre of grass can drive 2 cars.
Grass is a real alternative. Together with wood chip, biomass, rapeseed, we and our farmers have so many terrific biofuel options that can help generate our power, heat and transport needs into the future. An area like this could become completely self-sufficient, sustainable and CO2 neutral, and very good for the economy of the region. And this could be applied to all regions of Ireland. All we need is the will to do so. We sent Tanya into Wexford town to find out what people know about these biofuel alternatives.
What do you run your home on?
Electricity.
Oil, I think.
Oil central heating and triple back boiler.
Would you consider natural alternatives to running, say, your home and your car?
Yes, I definitely would, yeah.
What if I told you you could grow all your energy needs just here in Wexford?
I'd be pretty amazed.
Electricity, heating, all those things. Would you have known that?
Not really.
Did you know that in the long run you'll actually be saving a lot of money?
Don't worry, I looked at the most economic way to do anything.
Electricity is going to be very expensive at some stage.
Did you know that in the future they'll actually be able to run it, a lot of it, on grass?
No.
Yeah, this is with the grass that you grow. It's a very fast-growing grass, or reeds, is it?
No, I don't know much about it, you know, yeah. But I'd like to find out a lot more information about it.
Long ago, Ireland's landscape was covered in thick forests, but over time we felled the trees, leaving the landscape open for communal farming. 400 years ago, there was practically no hedgerows in Ireland. But over that time, a cultural change occurred. We divided our lands into fields and we enclosed them, and hedgerows became established as the dominant feature of our landscape. Ireland has over 800,000 kilometres of hedgerows, and together with other areas like field margins, they're essential for the survival of our indigenous wildlife. But these habitats are in danger. Since the 1970s, farmers have farmed the land intensively. Led by government and the EU, farmers were incentivised to get maximum yields from their land.
It's the thrush, yeah. There probably will be more emphasis on tree planting, I'd say, in the future. Yes,
There are already 50,000 farmers involved in REPS, an environmental farming strategy that is managed by Teagasc in partnership with the agricultural community. REPS promotes ways to create good habitats for wildlife on a farm, and Teagasc are now researching into options that will work best in Ireland.
We're trying to develop knowledge to support the agri-food sector and to ensure that it's economically viable and environmentally sustainable. And as part of the Rural Environment Research Programme, we've got a number of projects which are looking at biodiversity and wildlife and habitats in the rural countryside. Quite good.
Yeah.
So we've got lots of spiders, and I see some. We find that the more plants that there are and the bulkier the vegetation, the more insects there are. Staphylinid beetles. So for example, the more insects that we have, the more hedgehogs, the more young chicks that feed on them, the more frogs, bats that feed on those insects that fly. So these insects are very important in supporting food webs and food chains in the agricultural environment.
Well, the whole food web and the food chain hangs in a very fine balance. For example, if you have a greater variety of plants and herbs, that will attract more insects. They will produce more seeds, so hence birds that feed on, and mammals that feed on seeds or on insects are dependent on these. And then you have the higher predators such as foxes, stoats, and also birds of prey will in turn feed on these small mammals and birds. Tarsus. 12.8. So even small changes such as 1.5 meters, 2 meters of a field margin, unsprayed, untreated, it's not going to that won't be detrimental to the crop itself, but it's highly beneficial for the whole biodiversity of the farm.
At Kildalton College in Waterford, Catherine Keena is part of Teagasc's advisory division. She's witnessed at first hand the enormous changes in farming in the past decade.
10-12 years ago, as an agricultural advisor in Cavan, I would have been involved in land reclamation schemes for farmers, which involved taking hedgerows out. But it just shows how quickly policy changed, that within a year we were involved in the REP scheme, whose whole aim is to maintain hedgerows.
Catherine runs practical hedgerow planting demonstrations for farmers. It's an easy process. You start by filling a shallow trench with a mixture of earth and farmyard manure. Planting 2 rows of mixed species about 2 foot apart, you cut them back hard, which will ensure thick growth the following year. Plastic is laid over the shoots to ensure weeds are kept at bay. And it's essential to leave the odd sapling intact every few metres, which will eventually grow into a fine tree. Finally, you fence the hedgerow against rabbits and livestock. When the hedge has been established, the fence can be taken down.
This was planted last year, so it has 2 seasons growth. And don't forget, this was cut back, pruned back to a few inches above ground level in year 1, and again in the dormant period last spring we cut it back again down to about 6 inches above the first cut.
And that causes the sprouting out of
As a result, we have a multiplication
stems.
of shoots at the level where we want them. We have 11,000 farmers planting 300 metres each of new hedgerow. So that's a total of over 3,000 kilometres of new hedgerow being planted, which is the largest planting of hedgerows in the last, couple of 100 years.
That's incredible.
It is huge.
That's going to bring a huge amount of wildlife, isn't it, into our land?
Absolutely.
I love berries like this, and I eat them all the time. So I see you've got the hawthorn or the whitethorn here. And of course the birds eat all of these too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There are so many indigenous Irish species: whitethorn, damson, the Gelder rose, and spindle. Just ideal, making a perfect home for our wildlife. Another approach being promoted by Teagasc is the planting of linnet crops. This scheme gives farmers extra payments if they plant a small section of land with a crop solely for the local wildlife.
This looks different. What's going on here?
This is a really exciting new development, Duncan. Because farming has changed and we've lost tillage farming from a lot of the country. It has become intensified into certain areas. We're really losing the seed-eating birds. There's a decrease in those, such as the yellowhammer. So farmers are now actually growing crops.
For the birds?
For the birds.
Oh, wow, this is new. I haven't heard of this before. So this is actually planted for birds?
That's right. December, January is the time that the birds run out of food, you know, seed food. So that's the critical time.
What have you got here? I mean, what are they
so
actually...
I've got, probably the most common crop is a mixture of oats and linseed. Mm-hmm. So we have our typical oats here. That's ideal for birds like the yellowhammer. Then we have linseed.
Yes, linseed,
That's our linseed. You have these tiny seeds.
Right.
And this is ideal for the finches.
Mm-hmm. And then you've got what? Kale here, is it?
Then we've got kale. Kale is a different plant. It's a biennial, so it will produce flower and seeds next year. So we won't have any seeds from this year, but what we will have is fantastic cover, and that's where you'd find thrushes and robins, you know, in on the ground,
yes,
and all the small mammals.
And of course, will this now compensate for a lot of the monoculture intensive farming that we have around the country?
That's right.
It gives back something back to wildlife.
It does.
It's like in a way in our gardens, you know, where we plant now in our gardens to attract bird life, etc.
That's right. I've heard it called the giant bird table.
Well, isn't that what it is?
Yeah, so the whole
there are many options available for farmers. REPs and similar schemes present a golden opportunity to sustain our wildlife and enrich our landscape. Water is essential for life, yet we often treat it with disdain. Ireland is divided into water basins, systems of lakes, rivers and streams feeding the water tables underground. When I was a child, most rivers in rural Ireland you could drink, and I remember it so often out in the countryside, always knowing I could drink the water. But today it's very different. You've got to be very careful because rivers now can be polluted and all sorts of contaminants can be there. But I've got inside knowledge that this water in this river, which flows into Lough Melvin, has been tested and monitored by the County Council, and it's very pure and potable. Straddling counties Leitrim, Sligo and Fermanagh, the water system around Lough Melvin is still in very good health, but it's up to all the people living and working around it to keep it that way. Working together under the Water Framework Directive, the Environmental Protection Agency and Northern Ireland's Environment and Heritage Service are putting strategies in place to monitor and maintain water quality in the 3 water systems that are shared by the 2 jurisdictions.
We've been working on cross-border water issues with the EHS and with their predecessors for many, many years. We're now in the process of devising a monitoring programme to examine the quality of these waters, and also we're looking at measures that will deal with the major pressures that we have encountered.
We've been doing a lot of work in recent years, north and south, and the stage that we're at now is very much getting the involvement of stakeholders, that is users of the water, north and south, to come together and to work with the departments and in fact be part of the solution.
Among these EHS EPA cross-border projects is the Lough Melvin Nutrient Reduction Programme.
Part of the strategy is looking at changes to things like septic tanks, changing the way they operate, also how wastewater treatment plants are discharging into the local rivers, the tributaries into the lake. Things like reducing nutrient inputs to the lake from farmyards, from slurry spreading. Forestry is an additional risk in that high rainfall after clear felling washes a lot of nutrients and sediments into the lake as well. The water quality analysis has been going on for about 6 months now, and it's undertaken every 2 weeks. We go out and actually test the water quality. We take water samples that are brought back to the lab. So we look at things like total phosphorus levels, and the total phosphorus levels have been climbing over the last decade, which has serious impacts on the fish species within the lake. One of the major components of the project is stakeholder engagement. So it's looking at the local community and what the values they have for the lake. As you know, we're doing a Lough Melvin catchment management plan.
Right.
And Chuggas
Bernard Flanagan's family have farmed by the lakeshore for centuries, making him instinctively aware of the environment.
Habitats and populations.
That's grand.
So nice to meet you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks very much.
Right.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.
The land in this area is not suitable for intensive farming.
Come on, come on.
So I try to keep it as organic as I can. The lake is in very good shape. It's in very good condition. There's practically no pollution, and we would like to keep it that way.
Another major stakeholder in having a quality water system is the tourism business, as our anglers know only too well.
We expect to catch some Sonhan trout out this step here. They're indigenous species to Lough Melvin. They've been here since the Ice Age, 13,000 years ago, and they're a landlocked sea trout. If we were fishing for Gillaroo, we'd have to fish along the rocky shoreline. You would be coming here at the 1st of February to fish for the Atlantic salmon. End of April to the first week of May, then you get the grilse, which are the first run salmon. So we have an abundance of fishing here in Lough Melvin. Last year and this year we had a slight algae bloom on Lough Melvin. Now I say slight, and it's very slight. That'd be a worrying trend. There's no good when letting it go for the next 10 or 20 years and then trying to reverse it like they did in other countries by throwing millions at it. That really doesn't work. Now's the time when we've got the time to save it.
Our homes and holiday facilities can have a huge impact on water quality. Sewage waste must be dealt with properly, and our local authorities have an essential role to play here. But there are also natural ways of dealing with their sewage. The Rossinver Organic Centre on the Leitrim side of the border has installed a unique way of treating sewage. With 10,000 visitors a year, the centre produces the equivalent of 20 families' worth of sewage waste.
And we try to basically have best practice in not polluting any of the water streams. So that's why we have this constructed wetland system.
Having left the septic tank, the liquids enter the wetland here. The liquids are dealt with and processed by the vegetation and purified.
So the wetland is beyond these willows here, yeah?
Just beyond those willows.
And are they taking up nutrients also?
They are taking up nutrients and further purifying the water.
Right.
The water leaves here, enters into the pond. In the pond, the water is further treated by the sunlight itself. The ultraviolet light further purifies the water.
And of course there's no mechanical treatments at all, there's no energy going into it, it's all natural.
It's all natural. I mean, this is one of the wonders of nature, that they can deal with sewage in that way, and you have clean water at the other side of the process. So Duncan, this is the water that's coming from our system, going into the Balla River, from the Balla River into Lough Melvin.
This is the water I was drinking from earlier.
This is the water you were drinking earlier. It's tested by the council, by the fisheries board, and it's really fantastic. It's nice and sweet and soft. Prost.
Shanta.
Working in partnership with the two governments, people living around Lough Melvin are trying to do their best to preserve the quality of their water system. But keeping our natural water systems clean is a responsibility we must all now share.
The sun, the air, the soil and the water. The four ingredients that sustain life. Without it, we couldn't survive. This is Lough Melvin, pristine water, well managed both north and south. But most of our pristine waters in Ireland are under threat from pollution. We need to look after those. But here, and safe to swim, it's wonderful.
In our next programme, we visit neighbour woods, police cross-border waste crime, and explore tourism and the environment. See you then.